Welcome to Recovery Comes Home Radio, your go-to podcast for all things related to addiction recovery. Whether you are an individual in recovery, a concerned loved one, or a dedicated professional, this podcast is tailored just for you. Here we are all about empowering you with the tools, insights, and inspiration you need to move forward. So grab your headphones, tune in, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Recovery Comes Home Radio, the podcast where we help people reintegrate into their community and reconcile their relationships with their loved ones. Today, I'm really excited to bring you a spectacular guest. His name is Lance Woods. He was just catapulted from his position as a guidance counselor to the VP of operations for one of the most prominent treatment centers in the United States. What once was a good thing turned into workaholism, and he hit rock bottom. But he walked away from his career and had the bravery and the resilience to become an addiction specialist and a trauma coach. I can't wait to hear what kind of information and education you have for our guest today, Lance. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me this morning, Adrian.
So take me back to your recovery. What was it like for you before, and then what happened, and what's your life like now?
Yeah, I think in the height of my workaholism, which is obviously a process addiction, what I saw a lot of time was I was seeking the recognition that I needed in life and the validation that I needed in life through work. So whether it was trying to prove something to myself, trying to prove something to others, I just started dumping more and more into my career. And in about a 7-year period, as you sort of mentioned, I went from a guidance counselor to climbing the corporate ladder of becoming a vice president for one of the most prominent addiction treatment providers in the US. And so it seemed like during that time, I was always just chasing more and more. And I mean, yes, the money that came with it was great, and it allowed me and my family to live a certain type of life. But chasing those titles, what I saw was I was neglecting some of the most important titles in my life. And those were things like being a present father and being a present husband. And so at the kind of height of my workaholism or unhealthy relationship with work, I was spending about 200 nights a year on the road working. I would often work from 6 a.m. until 8 o'clock p.m. or so when I went to bed. I was doing this 6 or 7 days a week. And even in the times when I was at home, which was generally not much, I mean, there were some weeks where I was at home for less than 48 hours the whole week with my family. And during those times, I would still be incessantly checking email. I'd be spending the mornings working while I'd be sitting with my daughter on the couch. She'd be watching cartoons, and I would be on my laptop working, sending emails. I'd be pushing her on the swing with one hand and have my phone in another hand, checking emails, sending Teams messages, getting things aligned. And so, yeah, that was it for me. And I started realizing that balance wasn't what I wanted in life. My wife had become increasingly worried about my health. During that period of time, I had shingles twice from stress.
Wow.
And then I also had a bout of Bell's palsy where I started to kind of lose feeling in my face that was stress related and getting a little bit of a droop there. And although I'm a very healthy person and very health conscious, my wife was getting continually worried. She was worried that one day I would go out for my morning run or something and have a heart attack or something like that. And so she kept baby aspirin in the house, which I did not know until afterwards, just in case something was to happen. But luckily I was able to kind of pull that back and come full center or full approach and really see what was important to me. And I can say in that period since I left that world, I think I've spent one night away from home since then. I've had dinner with my family all but 3 nights. Next week, I'm chaperoning my first field trip for my daughter's school, which is something. And so my daughter's 8 now.
Wow,
so
congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's rebuilding those little pieces and getting to really just enjoy the fruits of the labor, I guess, and connecting with what's really important. That's family, that's community, and that's just the presence that I can have in the home.
And was it that switch to really having your work was your family?
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it. And it wasn't like it was, well, I guess it was sort of an overnight switch, but it was something that was brewing in my mind for a pretty long period. There was a stretch of about a 3-month period where as I was on the road, I would find myself, I'd be on my morning run and I'd might think about something with my daughter or something my daughter said, and I would just find myself kind of sad and tearful because of what I was missing. I would just say the easiest way is it wasn't worth it anymore. There was one night where I was at a hotel in Virginia Beach. I was gone for the whole week, and she was playing on her iPad, and we were doing a FaceTime call, and we were playing a game together. And in the game, she's like, "Dad, can you buy me a car or buy me whatever?" And so it was no problem to just be able to drop $20, whatever it is, to buy her this fake car on an online game. And it gave me like this feeling of, hey, that's nice that I can do something like that. But then, I realized what would be even better is if she's going to forget about some $20 car in some fake game online, but she's not going to forget about the nights where I'm actually home and we're playing board games together and we're doing those things. And so for me, that's been one of the most rewarding things since is we normally have a weekly board game night. She gets all excited and gets all the board games out, and we just sit and we play board games. And that hour is more precious than any amount of money that I could have ever made in those periods of being on the road and working to the extreme that I was working. So,
and how long ago was that switch that you made?
Yeah, so it's still relatively early. So, it's right around 7 months right now. So, and in saying that, it's just like any other aspect of addiction or recovery. It's something I still struggle with daily. It's something that I would love to say, no, I'm 100% healed and I never think about putting in extra hours or doing these things. And for me, workaholism wasn't just epitomized by putting in 70-hour weeks. It was the actions that I was doing in my free time and such. It was those checking emails on weekends. It was when I'm driving down the road, checking email on my phone so I don't get behind. And so even today, as I'm still driving, it's hard sometimes I get that, I need to check my email in case I miss something. And then I'm like, wait, what am I going to miss? What's so important that I can't wait 15 minutes? And so similar to any other type of addiction, it's being able to recognize some of the smaller triggers that are leading to the bigger picture. And still every day, it's like I have all of those thoughts, and it's just being able to find healthier ways to provide some counterbalance and not do those things.
So choosing healthier coping mechanisms.
100%. Yeah. And for me personally, it's putting my recovery first in those aspects of, I know that for me, there's some things that need to be non-negotiable for me. And that's sleep, that's family time, that's exercise. And so I need to get those three things out of the way. And I scheduled throughout every day, and then be able to plug in variables the rest of the day, and not let work infringe on any of those things. So if I know I'm not going to get 8 hours of sleep because I need to work, we're teetering on an unhealthy balance. If I know that I'm going to miss dinner, or if I'm going to be working through the evening hours and missing family time, then that's unhealthy balance for me. If I'm not able to get my daily exercise in, that's a problem, and I need to assess that. And so generally I try to get all those things scheduled and planned early. So then if I'm able to get those, I'm heading down the right path for the day.
Now, did you find it difficult to reintegrate into the real world in real life, off of the devices, off of the workaholism? How did that dynamic affect your family, particularly like your wife? It looks like your children are small enough that they might have missed some of that, but I can imagine that would be hard for your wife.
Yeah. So hats off to my wife first off, because of how supporting she's been through the last 7 years of me not being home that much and being the sole caretaker of our daughter and really keeping the family together. But yeah, no, it was difficult, because what we quickly realized was, with me traveling as much as I was and working as much as I was, that we really hadn't had a lot of fruitful and meaningful conversations over the last 4 or 5 years. It was a lot of just the trivial, hey, how was your day? So on and so forth. But we hadn't talked about our goals, what we want to do as a family, what we strive for, and so on and so forth. And so there's been a period, it's been nice. Over the last 6 months, I really feel like I've gotten to know my wife a lot better because of the amount of time we get to spend together. And we talk about our goals, her goals, how we can help achieve each other's goals. First, really the last 7 years was her doing everything she can to keep things afloat while I'm chasing my goals. So it was like, hey, I want to be a CEO of a company. And I was just dumping everything into that. And she was picking up the leftovers behind and really didn't have any time to invest in herself because she's so busy being a full-time mom while out ripping and running. So it's been nice to be able to reconnect on that aspect and be able to support her in what she wants to do as well, whether it be she's now looking at pursuing a doctoral degree, and knowing that she can actually do that because, hey, I'm home and I got the fork. Like, I can do dinner tonight while you go off to class and do those things. So for me, that's been a huge part, is like realizing that she doesn't have to put her dreams on hold anymore because I'm so busy chasing mine. And so it's allowed us to have some balance there where I'm still able to do something that I find purposeful and that I really enjoy doing, but there's no sacrifice to her in that aspect. She's also able to pursue her dreams at the same time.
Yeah, that you said that beautifully, that she was having to put her dreams on the back burner while you chased yours. And now you've found a way that you don't have to put yours on the back burner, but that you can both do what you want and chase your own dreams and then come together. I love the idea of dinner at the family table. I think that with my experience in the last 15 years in addiction recovery, a lot of problems come because of the breakdown of the family. And that just causes issues that need to be medicated.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, when you look at human beings as just evolutionary beings and who we are, what our culture has been over the last 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 years, we are community-based, family-based creatures. We're originally in tribes and small family units of 15 to 20 people. And we were able to have that close-knit relationship and have those support networks to be able to help fill our gaps. So when you're having a down day, somebody else is able to help fill that role and be able to take some pressure off you. And I think as we've progressed over the last 10,000 years, just we're seeing a degradation of those family systems and those communal tribal systems. We went from, like I said, from a tribe of 15 to 20 people now to a family of 3 people. That's also pretty disconnected at times. And one of the advantages of things like social media and Zoom and things like that is that it does allow us to connect with multiple people all around the world, but it does take away some of that actual physical connection and the emotional connection that comes with it when they're physically sitting in your room with you or they're physically within your household. And I think that's affected our mental health. That's affected our addiction cycles. It's affected our family values. And with that then comes problems in the long run or concerns in the long run. And so I think that's something that a lot of programs and a lot of types of treatment are going to look to focus on in the future, is finding ways that they can rebuild family and support systems to help integrate into people's recovery.
I totally agree. And I think that family sometimes, especially with the people that we deal with, are a lot of primary mental health, secondary addiction, and just frankly, hard cases that other people won't take. But they can create a family of their choosing.
100%.
As well, if there's a situation where they can't talk to their family or their family isn't really ready for that step yet. I know plenty of people that are in recovery and they feel closer to their sponsees or their fellow alcoholics or addicts because they have an understanding that the family doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. I mean, in an ideal world, I think everybody should be able to or would be able to go back to the kind of blood and bone that they were carved from and the actual familial relationships. But in reality, we know that's not possible. And in all situations, and the ability to be able to build your own family is something that I think is going to be an ongoing thing that we see. I mean, we see it in recovery housing all the time. We see it in your programs and the sense of community that it instills. It's the old saying, just because you're born family doesn't mean that you stay family, and that you're able to adapt and find those people that you are going to be able to mesh with and be able to help support your recovery, support your dreams, and be able to help get you to a better place.
Wow, this has been incredible. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to touch on a couple of things. You are very articulate and seem very astute for a 6-month mark. Do you think that working at that particular facility helped you kind of catapult you a little faster?
So, I mean, I've had a background in addiction for 20 years. So I've been working in the addiction field since basically I got out of undergrad, and then obviously got a master's in counseling and such. For me, what it was, I think, was it was very easy for me to understand other people's addiction because I could see some of those aspects in myself, although I never maybe admitted them to myself was part of the issue.
Right.
I was seeing that people struggle with substances, for everything from alcohol to opiates and everything in between. And I could help tell parts of their story and knew how to solve their problems and help them solve their problems. But what I didn't see, I think, at times was how that was also affecting me. And I think in healthcare in general, especially in addiction healthcare with addiction healthcare providers, we do see a level of burnout and a level of workaholism in us because of the fact that we're giving back. And so you always feel like you can see one more patient or you can see one more person because of the good that you're doing. But at the same time, no matter how much good you're doing, if it's taking away from yourself, you need to find balance. And so for me, what it was figuring out that although I can solve other people's problems, you can't necessarily solve a problem with the same brain that created it. And on my end, it was figuring out, okay, this is my unhealthy relationship with work and with the process. I need some help. And so for me, I was starting to go into a 12-step group, Workaholics Anonymous, and being able to build that support network and realize that I wasn't unique and that there were other people that have been through these same problems, and having that sense of community and knowing that there's people that I can call and there's people that I can rely on that have been there. And that's been a big piece for me. So I guess to answer your question, do I think it catapulted me and gave me some better insight? I think in working with others, yes. In dealing with my own issues, maybe a little bit of extra insight, but at the same time, it's a reminder that I need to check myself in the fact that no matter how much of an expert I am on other people, I'm still a pretty novice on myself, and that I still need help and I need the help of others to be able to achieve what I want to achieve.
Wow. I think that's a great point, because so many people in our little, like I said, our recovery bubble, we have 70,000 people in Delray Beach and 20% of the population is in recovery. So very often what happens is someone will get out of treatment or get out of recovery residence and they'll go work in treatment, starting as a tech and work their way up. Or some have been fortunate not to lose their nurse's license and not to lose their lawyers, not to be kicked off the bar. But if you could go back on our closing note, if you could go back to yourself when you started in the industry, knowing what you know now, that it's possible to work in addiction treatment and still get caught up in addiction yourself.
So what would I tell myself?
Right.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I would necessarily tell myself anything about addiction and anything about recovery. I think what I would do is I would be the person that I needed to talk to when I was 15, 16, 14 years old to help heal some of the issues. I mean, as with addiction isn't necessarily the problem. We're using that to mask other problems in our life. And so I would have probably, if I could go back in time, I would have gotten myself a little more support when I was younger. And I now looking back where I'm seeing what was the beginnings of addictive tendencies when I was young, I didn't have the foresight to see them at that time, obviously. And what I would probably do is just educate that person about some of those tendencies and try to get some help at that age to be able to circumvent those. And I mean, I think luckily in my case, the thing that I chose was something that from a societal standpoint is heralded a little different, right? But in reality, work addiction sometimes gets patted on the back because it's, oh, you're giving such a great effort and you climbed the ladder and you're successful and so on and so forth. But reality of the situation is I was one bad decision from being any other type of person with addiction. If I would have been someone that started drinking at an early age, or if I would have experimented with drugs, I very well could have been any of the people that I see in therapy on a weekly basis. I was lucky enough to not go down that route. But I guess, again, to answer that, the biggest thing that I would tell myself is that you're no different than anyone else that's in those shoes. There's no difference between a person with a process addiction and a person with an opiate addiction. We're both just masking our pain by burying it into something else. And we need to get through this together, and we need to support each other through these hard times.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to our audience. I think it is so important that people understand that there are process addictions and substance use addictions. We have guys that are in their 50s that their wives are leaving them because they can't get off of Call of Duty. We do have a serious problem in this country. And I just really appreciate you coming on and shedding some light to something that, like you said, a lot of people brush off and sweep under the rug.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm hoping, if anything, if more people start seeing and recognizing kind of some of the dangers of process addictions as well. You mentioned video games, there's gambling, there's workaholism, there's addiction to activities, exercise, sex, whatever it might be. Unfortunately, at this point in time, those are not recognized diagnoses in the DSM-5 or DSM-5-TR. So many insurance companies won't pay for people to get help on those aspects. They have to pay out of pocket to do that. And so just being on this show and being able to talk about it a little more, hopefully will help create some awareness where we can start getting some research behind it and maybe some effort behind it to putting these in as legitimate diagnoses in the medical system. So then people that, like you said, are playing Call of Duty 12 hours a day and losing their family, they can seek counseling and not have to pay absorbent fees out of pocket to be able to do so. Their insurance company will cover it and they'll be able to get help and hopefully rebuild their lives before it gets to the point where it's too bad.
Yeah, wonderful. So we're going to put all of your contact information and your bio in the show notes. But is there any place that you want to send people or phone number that you want to give out? Go ahead and share with us your website and phone.
Yeah, so my website is www.psychologicalhealing.com. That's kind of a wordplay on psychological, but it's PSYCHELOGICAL healing.com. And then I can be found on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all of those at the same thing, at Psychological Healing. If you're in North Carolina and you're looking for addiction treatments or anything along that line, feel free to reach out from that website, or you can contact me at 434-488-HEAL. That's HEAL, or 4325. So 434-488-4325. And I appreciate you giving me some time this morning and having some time to be able to talk about this journey.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to have you on, Lance. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future. I'll have you back on as a guest. You've been wonderful.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'm willing to come through. So.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for another episode of Recovery Comes Home Radio. We will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Recovery Comes Home Radio. We hope that today's episode has provided you with valuable information and insights on the recovery process. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Keep seeking support, practicing self-care, and moving forward one step at a time. Until next time, stay strong, stay resilient, and stay humble. Hope lives here.